Hello, and welcome to our guide for the unusual way to trigger spells with a cast on crit setup. The Rage Vortex of Berserking is one of the best skills to use with the cast on critical strike support, but it requires a very specific setup to work. It attaches the Rage Vortex to your character, continuously hitting nearby enemies until you run out of rage, allowing you to perform other actions in the meantime, such as shield charge or your curses. Exerting this attack with the ambush will apply its massive critical strike chance bonus for the entire duration of your Rage Vortex, although you will still need some investments for your spell critical strike chance. The most problematic part of such a setup is sustaining the rage cost itself. To achieve that, we will use the newly introduced Ravenous Passion Helmet. It causes rage bonuses to apply to spells instead, and grants you rage when you spend enough mana. Since you will spend a lot of mana with the cast on crit setup, you will endlessly sustain your Rage Vortex as long as you are in combat. Since you will need a lot of mana, the obvious choice to scale your damage is the Archmage support, which grants you additional lightning damage based on your unreserved mana. You could pair it with any other spell to your taste, but the Vortex of Projection simply deals the most damage. The Vortex of Projection consumes up to 5 Frostbolts to detonate in their location, boosting its damage and area of effect. To get enough Frostbolts, you will use the Cospri's Malice, which triggers any cold spell on hit. Your Rage Vortex doesn't deal much damage, but it can be used to leech back your mana. With the Corrupted Soul Keystone and Mind Over Matter Keystone, you will split incoming damage into Energy Shield, Life, and Mana. That way you can recover all 3 resources at once, utilizing them fully. You will also use the Petrified Blood, which further delays damage dealt to your life. The clear speed is great and enjoyable. You can freely move around while the Rage Vortex triggers the spells for you. Damage against bosses is decent, but it depends on overlaps and conditional buffs such as the Arcane Cloak. The build is very affordable to start, but it requires a unique helmet to function. It uses a lot of rare items. Their quality will affect your results. The Ravenous Passion and Cospri's Malice are necessary for the build functionality. The Prism Guardian and Atziri's Foible are also important for scaling your damage properly. They can be very expensive at the beginning of a league, but lose value rather quickly. Thanks to the Ravenous Passion Helmet, you will generate insane amounts of rage. With a higher trigger rate on your cast on crit setup, you will generate rage faster, allowing you to sustain Rage Vortex for a longer time. Spending more than 200 mana at once won't generate more rage. The Cospri's Malice Sword triggers your Frostbolts on hit, and improves your damage slightly. You can get a Corrupted Implicit that generates frenzy charges when you spend mana, which will help with your attack speed and boost the damage of your Vortex. The Prism Guardian causes Socketed Auras to reserve life instead of mana, but without the usual massive penalty of the Arrogant support. It also grants a decent amount of dexterity and elemental resistances. The Atziri's Foible Amulet greatly improves your maximum mana and your mana recovery. It also lowers your attribute requirements, which is quite useful. You can anoint the essence Sap Notable if you struggle with mana recovery, otherwise use the Arcane Capacitor. The Glorious Vanity can grant you the Corrupted Soul Keystone and convert nearby notables into different ones. Try to get at least one that provides Energy Shield Leech. It can also grant you other bonuses to Energy Shield or lightning spell damage. You can use the Healthy Mind Jewel to greatly improve your mana at the cost of lowering your life. It can be used if you have vastly more life than mana, otherwise it might lower your survivability. There are many useful modifiers available on this jewel. You can also alter your aura setup to include different bonuses, such as Energy Shield on hit from Discipline Aura, or Life Leech from Vitality Aura. On your rare gear, you should aim mostly for the bonuses to your maximum life, mana, and Energy Shield. You will also need plenty of dexterity to equip your sword. To improve your damage, you will need at least 14% cooldown recovery rate, accuracy rate, and plenty of attack speed. If you want to use a different spell, you can use a rare weapon that improves your spell damage, and its hits cannot be evaded. It will require you to get less dexterity, accuracy, and attack speed on your remaining gear as a result. You can use the Rage Vortex only with swords and axes. Look for rare body armor that boosts your energy shield and mana. You can avoid life modifiers to lower the cost and get the life mastery instead. It should be a shaper influenced with a modifier that improves the critical strike chance of your spells. Use a pair of rare boots that boost your life, mana, movement speed, and resistance. You will need a total of 14% cooldown recovery rate, which can be split between boots, abyss jewel, and belt, or provided solely by one item, usually at a much greater cost. Other than the usual modifiers, your gloves can grant you a lot of useful bonuses to your attack speed, accuracy rating, or damage. Use the Eldritch Implicits to get life leech and unnerve your enemies. On your belt, you should aim for high maximum life, mana, and resistance bonuses. Flask modifiers are also very useful to have. Use the Stygian Vice base to get an additional Abyss Jewel socket. You can craft the cooldown recovery rate via the crafting bench. Your rare rings are rather basic. You will need life, mana and its regeneration, and lots of resistances or lacking attributes. You can also get a lot of accuracy ratings to improve your hit chance, or critical strike multiplier to boost your damage. On your rare jewels, you should try to get bonuses to your maximum life and mana. They can also boost your attack speed, accuracy rating or critical strike multiplier, as well as cover your lacking resistances or attributes. The extra Abyss jewel socketed in your belt can provide mostly the same modifiers as the regular rare jewels in a slightly different form. They can also grant you a bit of cooldown recovery rate or provide a phasing buff after you kill an enemy. With this flask, you can recover your energy shield more efficiently. Combine it with a life flask that grants more healing when you are on low life, as it is your default state at all times due to petrified blood. The Bottled Faith is the obvious choice for this build, as it will greatly improve your damage and critical strike chance against enemies standing on the consecrated ground. You can enchant it to trigger when you hit a rare enemy. For your remaining magic flasks, we recommend using a life flask with bleeding removal, the Quicksilver flask with critical strike chance bonus, and a diamond flask with attack speed bonus. The transfigured version of this skill attaches the rage vortex to your character until you run out of rage. The rage cost accelerates over time, but you can refresh it during its duration to restart the rage drain. The vortex of projection deals cold damage in bigger areas. It can be used with frostbolts to create more explosions with a bonus to its damage and area. Most of your damage comes from the Archmage support, so the lightning penetration is more useful than cold or elemental penetration. The awakened version also grants you lightning exposure. The frostbolt creates a cold projectile. It doesn't deal that much damage on its own, but it can be consumed by the vortex to create even more explosions. With the greater volley, you will create more projectiles for your vortex to consume. Slowing their speed is also important so the explosions don't happen too far. The petrified blood delays the damage you take directly to your life, making your leech more effective. It also enables the Pain Attunement Keystone. The Arctic armor grants you immunity to freeze and extra physical damage mitigation if you are stationary. With some adjustments, you can also use Discipline, but it is not that great for this setup. The Precision is a simple yet powerful aura. It improves your accuracy rating and critical strike chance. You should socket those auras in the Prism Guardian shield. Thanks to the Petrified Blood, you can reserve half of your life without negative consequences. The Assassin's Mark greatly improves your damage by increasing your critical strike chance and multiplier against marked enemies. Thanks to the mark on hit support, you will automatically apply this curse when you hit an enemy with any of your attacks. The Zealotry is an offensive aura that greatly improves your damage and critical strike chance with spells. The Divine Blessing changes this aura into a temporary buff and adds massive mana cost to it, which you can use to quickly generate rage before the encounter or between the packs. You can also use the Eternal Blessing for the simplicity. The Shield Charge is your main movement skill. You can use it without interrupting the Rage Vortex, which is a big advantage over other cast on crit setups. use the faster attack support to make it even faster. You could also use the momentum or enhanced supports, but it's hard to find enough sockets for that. The ambush exerts your next attack, adding a massive amount of flat critical strike chance. It will be applied to the whole duration of the Rage Vortex, saving you a lot of investments. The Arcane Cloak is a guard skill that absorbs a large amount of damage and improves your DPS during its duration. It also spends a lot of mana, so you'll gain a bit of rage to start the loop. The Sigil of Power creates a mark on the ground that improves your damage and weakens your enemies. You will have to spend mana while standing in the circle to empower it. You can also use the Frost Shield if you like its functionality more. You can use the enhanced support to further boost the effectiveness of those skills. You can also use the automation so you don't have to remember about pressing the Arcane Cloak. If you are not using the Eternal Blessing, you can reserve a bit of your mana to greatly improve your mana regeneration. It also enables many useful Watcher's Eye modifiers. Frostblink is an instant teleport that leaves Chilling Ground in both locations. Use it to supplement shield charge for even better mobility. Killing all bandits for 2 additional passive points is the best option. Helping Alira is also acceptable at first, but you should refund it later on. The best major Pantheon power here is the Soul of Arakali, as the damage over time effects are the biggest weakness of Petrified Blood. For your minor Pantheon power, we recommend either Soul of Ralakesh to trivialize bleeds, or Soul of Shikari to help with chaos damage. And the final setup requires the Ravenous Helmet, so for the leveling process we recommend using the usual Spellcaster with Archmage setup. You can equip the helmet surprisingly early, but to automate Frostbolts you will also need the unique sword. For more leveling tips you can check out our written guide on the website. The final passive tree is very straightforward. The biggest focus is picking up as much mana as possible. You will also get bonuses to maximum life, accuracy rating, and a bit of damage and crits. Thanks to the Elemental Mastery, you will sometimes treat enemy resistances as inverted, which grants you a lot of damage without needing to invest into a second curse, especially against enemies with bolstered lightning resistance. Such hits will also inflict much more powerful shocks than usual. This build uses 5 keystones, but most of them are self-explanatory. You will have a lot of energy, shield without big investments. The most important sources of it are the Corrupted Soul keystone from the Glorious Vanity Jewel and the Hierophant Ascendancy. We encourage you to give this build a try. It is a very fun and unique playstyle. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Have a good day and see you next time.